Well, the Supreme Court, in an unsigned order, essentially allowed a lower court order that said, from Judge Boasberg, now you got to bring that deported El Salvador illegal alien back to the United States. Can't remain in that supermax prison. Well, the court essentially said you got to facilitate it. So that just broke before the show. Joining me now, Missouri Senator Eric Schmitt. Senator, well, here we go. We got a massive problem with illegal immigration in the United States. The voters made it clear they wanted Donald Trump to do something about it. Donald Trump tries to take measures, sometimes, I guess, extraordinary measures to keep us safe. And yet the courts say, no, we're going to step in as the commander-in-chief and essentially do your job.
Well, I think that it's important to give context here, Laura, as this is breaking. I just had a chance to review the order before coming on your show, and it's very limited. This guy is deportable. This guy is a gang member. He is an MS-13 member, and they can deport him. They just couldn't deport him to El Salvador, evidently. So at the end of the day, this guy's going to be gone, and he should be gone, and there are hundreds of thousands more like him. This mass deportation effort, the American people, as you said, voted for this. We need more of it. And Judge Boasberg was slapped down earlier this week when he tried to intervene in the core Article 2 powers of the President of the United States. So as all these cases make their way through, the President's well within his authority to do it. In this specific example that just happened here, he's going to get deported, and he should. It just will be somewhere else other than El Salvador.
All right, guys, so we got to talk about a Supreme Court ruling that the liberal media will spin as a L for President Trump. But it's not really an L, or at the very least, it's not a big L, okay? It might be a small L, okay? It's a small L, and I'm going to tell you why it's a small L. But the Supreme Court has basically required that the administration help, quote-unquote, facilitate the return of the alleged illegal immigrant gang member that was sent to El Salvador, okay? And this effectively is the Supreme Court saying that the district court has the authority to tell the president to bring back illegal immigrant gang members that we have imprisoned overseas, right? Basically directing the executive branch on how to conduct foreign policy, right? And foreign affairs. That's essentially kind of what it seems like the Supreme Court is agreeing with here, right? Which I think is kind of crazy to think about. But regardless, what is happening now moving forward in regards to the illegal immigrant gang member coming back, there's not a real timeline for when/if that will happen. So without further ado, let's go ahead and get into this.
The Supreme Court has ordered the federal government to facilitate the return of a Maryland man who was mistakenly deported to El Salvador.
Okay, let's pause, right? I have to address this, okay? And I've addressed this before, but I want to be clear. The mainstream liberal media and their propaganda never ceases to amaze me, okay? And I've seen a lot of propaganda over the past 2 weeks. The propaganda in the financial media is like more than I ever thought, right? I mean, it's just as much as the political media, which tells you the political nature of even the financial media. But anyways, when it comes to the story right here, they keep saying that the illegal was deported to El Salvador by mistake, right? Implying that he was deported by mistake. However, he was not deported by mistake. They could have deported him to any country in the world except El Salvador, right? Any country that would take the guy, they could have deported him there because he's here illegally, okay? So in my opinion, when you talk about him being deported in error, they make it sound worse than it actually is when you understand what they actually mean. What that means is that, well, they should have sent him to El Salvador. But El Salvador is his home country, right? He's in his home. I don't understand what's so controversial about sending an illegal immigrant back home, right? I don't get it. I don't understand it. I thought America was terrible for so-called black and brown folks, right? That's the part about this that really blows my mind. They'll tell you that America is terrible, systemically racist, the worst place on earth, white supremacy, okay, for so-called colored folks. But then as soon as you remove them, you send them back to their great homelands, which, by the way, El Salvador, not a bad country to visit nowadays. But, you know, in regards to being in that prison, yeah, definitely one of the worst places on earth that you can be. Yeah, but, you know, listen, at the end of the day, he's here illegally and he was deported, right? He was not wrongfully deported. He just should not have been sent to El Salvador. That is a key distinction that should be made. And the reason why is because I don't think that the liberals are going to get the happy ending that they think they're going to get. So let's continue.
A federal district court originally ordered the return of Kilmar Abrego Garcia to the United States by Monday night. However, Chief Justice John Roberts paused that to give justices more time to look at the order. Attorneys for the Justice Department admitted Abrego Garcia's deportation was a, quote, administrative error. But the DOJ claims the 29-year-old father has ties to the MS-13 gang. Melissa Quinn is a politics reporter for CBSNews.com. She joins us now on the phone. And Melissa, there's been so much push and pull on all of this. What does this ruling today mean?
Well, I want to go back really quick, if I may, to the order that the district court entered on Friday. It said that the government had to facilitate and effectuate the return of Mr. Abrego Garcia to the U.S. from Salvadoran custody. So what we're seeing now from the Supreme Court is really look at those two, that phrase, facilitate and return, and effectuate the return. As to the
Again, look at this propaganda. Mistakenly deported, right? Again, implying that he's just not eligible to be deported, which, again, is just not true, right? Not true at all. This is the propaganda for the media. They're trying to turn this dude into a sad sob story, right? That's what they're trying to do. Even though a prior judge was convinced enough that this guy is a gang member, okay, to deny his bond, okay, because he was in the country since 2012, got caught in 2019 by immigration authorities, and when he went to court, the judge basically said, hey, bro, you're in a gang. And at that point, he tries to claim asylum, okay, and his case goes to another judge, and he tells a sad sob story to the judge about how if he is deported back to El Salvador, he will be killed by some gang in El Salvador that has issues with his family's business. The judge believed it and basically said, okay, I'm going to issue a withholding of removal order, okay, which would bar him from being deported back to El Salvador. But technically, he can be deported to any other country on earth, just not El Salvador. But he was denied asylum, right? He was not granted asylum, right? He could not stay. He just could not be deported to El Salvador. So again, this guy, at least a judge before the past, said that, hey, I'm convinced you're a gang member enough to deny bond, right? So these people in the mainstream liberal media, it's so funny how they're framing their story. But once you actually look into the facts, you kind of understand that, okay, it's unfortunate that there was a mistake to send him to El Salvador. But again, the mistake was not him being deported. It was just the location that he was being deported to. And again, that's the distinction that the media is going out of their way not to make, because they don't want you to understand that this guy was eligible for deportation. They want you to think that this dude is some innocent asylum seeker and he's a family man with kids and a wife and he never did anything wrong, right? He don't deserve to be deported. But again, the news flash here, the message that the Trump administration is sending is that if you're here illegally, you are subject to deportation, period. Okay, period.
Facilitate part, the Supreme Court is saying, yes, the district court was right. The government has to facilitate his release from Salvadoran custody. But it's the second part, that effectuate word, where the Supreme Court is now saying to the district court, you need to go back and you need to hold more proceedings and you need to clarify what exactly that means.
Yeah, so this is where it gets tricky because the Supreme Court says that the government must facilitate bringing him back. But in regards to effectuating bringing him back, it's unclear exactly what that means. And the district court has to figure out what that means while at the same time not overstepping their boundaries, the balance of power between the judicial branch and the executive branch. Because, again, the executive branch is supposed to conduct foreign affairs, right? So in plain English, I think, and again, this is just me spitballing here, right? But I believe in practical terms, yes, the district court can tell the administration, hey, you need to try to get, X person back to the United States of America. Okay, you need to bring them back, but they can't tell them how to do it. Okay, so for example, if Nayib Bukele says, no, I'm not going to do it, the judge can't say, oh, well, you got to declare war, right? Or that you must do this or you must do that in order to force Nayib Bukele to release the illegal immigrant. Because ultimately, at the end of the day, if Nayib Bukele says, no, I'm not doing it, Again, the judge can't force the United States to declare war, right? The judge can't force the United States to strong arm Nayib Bukele into doing it, right? If he says, no, I don't want to do it, then, hey, I think maybe the most that the court can do, maybe they can try to stop payment for the imprisonment of that specific illegal immigrant. But again, if Nayib Bukele says, no, I'm not going to release him, what can the court do, right? The court can't do anything. The court is powerless. So this is not really a W for the left, and it's not. That's what I'm saying. It's not really an L for the Trump administration. It's not a big L. It might be a small L because on paper the Supreme Court is saying, hey, the government must help. But what does that really mean in practical terms when you're dealing with a foreign entity, right? Again, you can't just force Nayib Bukele to release the guy. I mean, you can't do that. Or the court can't basically force the administration to strong arm Nayib Bukele. I mean, only thing that the government has to do is to say, hey, we tried, right? We tried. And whether or not Nayib Bukele does it, hey, well, that's up to him, right? That's his decision. That's basically where it's at right now. So again, the Trump administration could play hardball. They could say, yeah, we tried, but they're not cooperating, so it is what it is, right? That could be what they do. Or there's another option, and I think this option is probably the best option from a PR perspective, because the Trump administration, they don't want to unnecessarily ignore the Supreme Court, right? In the sense that if you're going to ignore the Supreme Court, don't do it unnecessarily, right? In this situation, it is not necessary to ignore the Supreme Court. And I don't think that President Trump should do that. He shouldn't even make it look like he's doing it. I think personally, the move here would be to bring him back, to put him through the proper proceedings, right? And then just deport him, right? Deport him again, not to El Salvador, right? That's literally what the Trump administration could do in this situation. That would be the savage move, just to show them that you didn't win, right? Ultimately, in the day, you may have gotten him out of El Salvador, the prison, but he's still gone, right? He's still deported. So ultimately, he's leaving the country. And good luck getting back in, right? Good luck getting back in through the border, right? Because the border's sealed. So honestly, like, this is not, again, a W for Democrats. And again, it's not even an L for Trump. It's just one of those things where, okay, well, they just have to deport him somewhere else. It's not El Salvador.
What happens next, though, for Kilmar Abrego Garcia?
Well, the Supreme Court is saying here that the Trump administration needs to take those steps to secure his release from the Salvadoran prison. The court, however, did not set a deadline or a time frame for exactly when that has to take place. And as I mentioned earlier, it did call for further proceedings. The court said that the district court needed to clarify that directive, but it also said that the government needed to be prepared to share what it could about the steps it's taken and the prospects of further steps involving his deportation.
All right, Melissa Quinn, thank you very much.
Yeah, again, that is the key here, right? The government has to show that they're trying to get them back, but that doesn't mean that the government has to get them back, right? Whether or not the government actually gets them back, that's a whole different story. So again, the headlines, the media, the liberal media say, oh, this is a loss for Trump. And it's probably a small L, but ultimately at the end of the day, I'm not sure if this guy is coming back, to be honest with you. And if he does come back, he's probably going to get deported again. So, all the boohoo whine and crying from the left about this guy, it's really not going to work out in their favor, right? It's just not going to, okay? And ultimately, at the end of the day, people may be uncomfortable with some of the message that President Trump is using to send a message, but the message has to be sent. If you come to this country illegally, anything can happen to you. You can wind up in some max security prison in El Salvador. That is an important message because we do not want people coming into this country illegally. And if you're here illegally, then you're subject to deportation, right? Doesn't matter if you committed a crime or if you're a violent criminal. Doesn't matter who you are. Being here illegally in and of itself is more than enough justification to deport you back to some country, right? In this case, you can't be deported back to your home country. It is enough to deport you somewhere, right? To get you out of the United States of America. And again, that is why this story, I just don't think is having the effect that the media thinks, right? Because most people, when they listen to the story, they're like, okay, he was here illegally. He was deported back to his home country, right? What's the problem, right? What's the problem? But again, that's why they try to make it sound like that he was in the country legally and that, he was just some innocent migrant, some innocent asylum seeker, father who, didn't do nothing wrong. Okay. And again, this is why they do that, right? They want to tug on your heartstrings. They want to make you emotional, right? Because emotions will cloud your judgment, right? That is what the media is trying to do. In this situation, it's not going to work with me. Ultimately, he was in the country illegally. And hey, it is what it is. You got swept up. You got swept up, and that's just what it is, right? You should have came here illegally. Sorry. That's just what it is. So again, if I was Trump administration, yeah, I get him back. I get him back and then deport him again and be done with it. Right? Because if you let it drag on, then they're going to keep boohoo whining and crying about it. And it'll make it seem like the Trump administration is not listening to the Supreme Court. And it's not even necessary at this point because, again, you still can deport the guy, right? You just got to take some extra steps. Let me know what you guys think. Make sure you like, comment, and subscribe. Most importantly, share a Black conservative perspective. Peace.